The group sits watching the video of various aliens on Earth. Apparently, it had originally been posted online, but it seems as though everyone has bought it hook, line, and sinker. Not that Ben cared. They watched as his identity was revealed to the world, and he just sighed in annoyance. Yeah, because I tried so hard to keep my identity a secret. Idiots. He said sarcastically, flipping the channel and finding it was on every station. Ben got up and stretched and began to walk outside, seeing reporters and cameramen surrounding his house, and got annoyed, shutting the door behind him. He then started walking forwards into the crowd as they were asking him all sorts of stupid questions, and if he had any statements he'd like to make, to which he says yes, and then takes out his plasma blade and puts it to the one that ask's throat, telling them, move, or be removed, he said darkly, prompting them all to leave very quickly. There was a guy on TV named Will Harang who was speaking ill of Ben and talked about how some people believed that he was some sort of superhero, though he found that idea to be ridiculous. They'd received a call from a viewer who actually told them that Ben straight up saved their lives, but Will tried to twist it to make Ben look like the bad guy, though some other people began messing with the feed and the captions to make Will look like a jerk, some hacker group probably. We later on see Ben driving around in his car with Gwen chatting about how everyone knows his identity now, and he says that he hadn't been trying to hide it. Most people just never realized. And she tells him that Will guy was losing viewership and ratings for attacking him like that, which Ben laughed at. They actually met up with Kevin, who was driving his own car down the opposite side of the road, and he says that he got a hit on who had been posting that stuff about him on the net. Ben says, "Let me guess, Julie?" To which Kevin nodded in response to that and said that they could go see what's up. Ben agrees to that, and they start all heading towards Julie's house, with Gwen jokingly asking when she gets a car, to which he'd answered that he'd buy her one when she got her a license. While Julie was riding shotgun in Kevin's car, she was talking to Kevin about something, and he'd nodded, saying that they could handle things and not to worry. They drove to Julie's house and got out and went to knock on the door. Her dad opened it up and looked surprised as Ben asked for Julie. He moved out of the way as they all went inside, where Julie was working on a laptop. She says that she told Ben she'd figure it out eventually, though Ben reminded her that he'd already told her everything. There wasn't anything to figure out. Gwen walked over, seeing Julie had something up on her laptop, and asked about it, though Julie says she thought it was one of Ben's transformations, though Ben walks over and says he's never seen that one before and asked where it came from. She said it was from Orlando, but beyond that she didn't have much to go on. Nodding, they then headed off to go check it out and see what's up. Ben whistled for Ship, who was riding in the back seat, and he changed into a spacecraft form, waiting for them to go on board. They had flown into restricted airspace where the other jets tried to fire on them. Ben tells Ship to take evasive maneuvers and non-lethal takedowns. Ship then said their name as if in understanding and opened up a hatch underneath Ben, letting him drop out into the sky so that he could do his thing. Ben changed into Big Chill and flew through the engines, while Ship was trying to defend himself from their attacks, making the other guys have to eject, though one of their parachutes didn't open properly and Ben had flown down to catch them, setting them safely onto the ground as a bunch of guys pointed blasters at him. He then smirked and told them to put their toys away. He'd let loose cool air that created something akin to a smoke screen, and while they were firing blind, he'd phase through the ground. "You guys really are stupid, aren't you?" Ben then called out from atop a large stone that was nearby, sitting there as if he wasn't even the least bit worried about those guys in the slightest. They'd all turned their blasters on him, and he simply held up his plumber's badge and told them to call their boss. The general in charge of the place was telling Ben and his friends about what was going on, talking about the Orion, which would be capable of traveling 15% the speed of light, though Kevin and Ben just laughed hearing that, asking if they were seriously going that slow. The general was confused at first, but then remembered that they had alien tech. He says that this was what they could do without alien technology, but recently one of their warheads was supposed to act as propulsion had been stolen. Lucy says that something like that could wipe out the entire city if they weren't careful, and the general responds that that is why they were asking for the plumber's help in the matter. Nodding, Ben says that they'll do what they can to help. And much later on, the creature attacks again, though the Ultimatrix won't activate, as it changed to the yellow setting, saying uncatalogued DNA detected, so Ben just goes for his plumber staff instead. instead. The creature is able to withstand normal human strength, but Ben was able to strike them in their less armored abdomen area, as the Ultimatrix then shot out a yellow beam and said that uncanalog DNA sample was acquired. The alien then demanded to know what exactly Ben had done, to which he says, "Oh sure, now you want to talk," with a sigh as he hit down the dial and changed into Cannonbolt and began to charge at them, though they tried to blast him with water and run off with the explosive. The general of the base says that they got a serious problem and pointed out that they'd stolen the engine, which was a nuclear bomb. We then cut to Ship, who was scanning for it and said their name a couple of times, showing them that the device was located on a map. Kevin says that looks like they are underwater, and Lucy says that water and linopens don't mix, so Ben tells her to remain aboard Ship because the guy had water controlling powers. While Lucy and Ship stayed up above the water, Ben, Gwen, and Kevin all went to deal with that guy and keep him from setting off the bomb for whatever purpose he had it for. The team told the guy to give the bomb back, though they tell them that he was going to launch in 2 minutes, and in response Ben hits the watch, changing into Cannonbolt again. They asked hadn't he already tried that one, and Ben responds that this time he's going ultimate before hitting the Ultimatrix symbol and changing into Ultimate Cannonbolt. Ultimate Cannonbolt was able to handle the powers of this new alien, and so slammed into them, making them crash into some cables and zapping them in the process. Ben then calls out to Kevin to disable the launch while he held the guy off. With a nod, Kevin went to do just that. Once everyone was out of danger, Gwen asked the guy's name and why he was there. He said that his name was Bivalven. He comes from what the humans call the Andromeda Galaxy. They asked him why exactly he was so far from home. Bivalven then explains that he was kidnapped along with 4 others by a monster named Agrigor. Though they managed to escape him, they all crashed on Earth, where they were all separated from one another. Ben changes back to human and helps Bivalven up and says that they can get him home with a quick call to the plumbers, and that he could wait at the base. Kevin removes the bomb from the ship and says they'll be returning that back to NASA and that they should get going now. Later on, after returning the bomb to NASA, they'd contacted the plumbers while Lucy was telling Ben something, to which he'd nodded in response. Gwen asked what's up, and Lucy says that since Ben is healed, the plumbers want her to patrol more close to her homeworld so that way they could better help relations there. After the plumbers picked up Bivalven, we later see Ben standing outside of his school. Julie asked him if he's afraid to go in, and he responds that he deals with alien warlords for a living. High school is no issue. Plus, now he doesn't have to hide anymore, and he can go all out during gym class while they walk inside and everyone's staring at Ben. Though he just goes straight to his locker, and when the bullies try their usual antics, Ben hits one of them hard enough that it dented the locker they'd crashed into. The plumber's ship that was taking Bivalven home was then attacked as a dark-haired man with horns smirked darkly.